but we're dealing with, Trump 201 here, and he's got more firepower, much more firepower.
Tim Gross, a former ambassador to the United States and Trade and Climate Change Minister, has had a distinguished career over several decades representing New Zealand on the world stage, having also served as New Zealand's ambassador to the World Trade Organization. He was in Washington last week during President Donald Trump's inauguration, and we're eager to hear his perspective on the evolving US trade policies and their potential implications for New Zealand and the global economy. Kia ora, Tim.
Kia ora, Mike.
Thanks very much for joining us. What was it like in Washington? Can you share your takeaway thoughts about Trump's inauguration speech and particularly those trade policies?
Well, and perhaps you're the type of person who will understand this better than most people. It's weird. You can sit at home, watch as many YouTube videos on what is going on in, say, Washington, and listen to as many podcasts, but for some reason, we human beings, you need to be physically there to pick up the vibe, to use the usual word. I don't know why, but it does sharpen your perception. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. So what did you pick up when you were in Washington?
I picked up multiple interesting things. Let me open with a very important issue that many people have raised with me. What's the difference between Trump 1 and Trump 2? And here's I don't say any of this that we're about to discuss with rock solid confidence, Mike, because this is going to morph over the next few years. And of course, it will also be influenced by the upcoming elections in only 2 years' time. And what people forget is a couple of things. This was probably the most extraordinary political comeback in post-war history in important countries. But this was no landslide. Yes, he got the trifecta, the presidency, control of the House, the Senate. But if you want to know what a landslide looks at, go back to 1984, when Walter Mondale won 13 electoral college votes. Kamala Harris won 226. But the point of my story is that 2 years later at the midterms, after everyone predicting the Democratic Party is finished, we're dead, we have to completely reinvent ourselves, the Democratic Party flipped the House over to Democratic Party control. So everyone around politics, whatever your private views are, understands and believes in the phrase, a week is a long time in politics. Well, 2 years is a bloody age. So, this is going to, my point is a very simple one. The Speaker, Mike Johnson, has the world's most difficult job, other than perhaps Jerome Powell, dealing with the President. And he's on a knife-edge majority with, depending on how you count it, 3 to 5 seats in a chamber of 454 politicians. And that's going to influence a lot of action. Now, having said that, let's then go to my original framing question, what's the difference? And I'll give you my big 3 takeaways. First of all, I doubt very much, especially talking to people very close to not necessarily Trump himself, but the people right around him, and I mean including some people I spoke to who have direct personal access to him, is that Trump fundamentally hasn't changed himself. But we have to qualify that in a couple of ways. First of all, it's well known from public statements, either Ivanka or Ivana, I forget who it was, said at the time, that they weren't expecting him to win, and certainly Hillary Clinton wasn't expecting him to win. So they weren't prepared for this, and I could add many other anecdotes in my dealings with Trump the Trump people when I was up in Washington as our ambassador. But now he's really well prepared. And so while I don't think he will have changed a great deal, most of us at that age would not change a great deal. He knows a hell of a lot more. He'll be more effective. And also, I know a lot of people laughed when they read the thing in the inauguration speech referring to the extraordinary escape from assassination he had, less than a centimetre, and he'd be dead. People laughed when he said, I believe I've been saved for a purpose. It doesn't matter what you think of that statement. What matters is what he thinks. And I think he is just, after surviving the lawfare the last 4 years, I just think he's going to be so utterly ruthless and determined. So to sum it up, do I think he's personally changed? No, but we're dealing with, Trump 201 here, and he's got more firepower, much more firepower than he had. The second thing I'd say is that what I call the Trump ecosystem around him, the people around him, I mean, they've changed. The sort of, I remember going, I was invited up to the Republican Party convention in 2016 that chose him as the candidate. And I was invited by Kevin Baker, who was the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, you could argue the most important parliamentary committee on the planet. I'd known Kevin since I was chairing WTO negotiations because Kevin's strong interest in an open trade policy for the United States. And he asked me to make a speech to about 300 Trumpers. And I was having a glass of wine with Republican Party loyalty back in 2016. I'm not going to mention this person's name, but a former chairman of the party. And we're looking up at the screen of the Mad Marga people with their baseball hats on back to front and having a glass of Oregon Pinot Noir. And he says to me, Ambassador, these people are fucking nuts. Well, the Trump ecosystem still has got that in it, but it's much wider and different. I mean, the most obvious manifestation that all people who follow politics can grasp immediately are the tech titans led by the first buddy, Elon Musk. So, but there's some very sophisticated people around him, as well as some, I will be diplomatic, I can't break the habits of a lifetime, Mike, as well as some unusual appointments, shall we say. And they are really smart and balanced people with very different views to the, neo-isolationists. So that's my second point. The ecosystem around Trump has changed. And my third big takeaway, which may be the most important one, well, in my view, is people are taking him seriously for the first time. There was a very famous and very perceptive phrase that some very smart person, whose name, of course, I've forgotten, made in 2017 or 2016, which is his supporters take him seriously but not literally, and his detractors take him literally but not seriously. Well, I'm arguing you should file that under the file for historically interesting but irrelevant today, because everybody is taking Trump seriously. Just look at the pilgrimage of corporate and political titans to Mar-a-Lago to kiss his butt, to use the American vernacular. Everybody's taking him seriously now. And that changes everything, Mike, because, if you remember back to, I don't know how, I wasn't sure how much political knowledge and understanding there is when I talk about this, because it's so deep. But you may recall personally, I'm sure you do, the phrase, the axis of adults. Oh, don't worry about Trump. We'll surround him with McMaster and General whoever, and we'll just work around him. I don't think anyone believes that is possible now. So in that sense, we're dealing with Trump 201, and it's a more formidable thing that this little country and everyone has to deal with.
For more content just like this and all the latest business and political news, head over to mbr.co.nz.